Good morning. Today we're out here in Highland, Maryland. We're going to be ripping out an old pond and we're going to be putting a 10-foot pondless waterfall in its place. Pond is overgrown. It's not working properly. Here you can see our pond. We're going to be ripping out most of these iris and all this stuff, getting everything cleared out here. Then we can set our liner and basin in for the pondless waterfall. You can see this is where the old waterfall was coming in. So as usual, let's go through some of the key viewpoints that we're going to be looking for here. Pond is in this area. Patio area usually has some seating right through here. You can actually see where the rug was right in here. So that's actually going to be a nice view of this pondless that's going in here. We also have some real important window views here. I am inside the house right now and we're taking a look at some of those viewpoints from in here. So this is the view coming out from the kitchen table. And our waterfall is going to come right in this area. We're going to put our nice drops right in here. Here we got the view from the sunroom, so that's going to be able to capture some nice viewpoints as well. And then last we have from the kitchen sink. I'm going to really try to make sure we can get a little bit of a waterfall view right here, so if you're sitting here doing any dishes, you'll have an awesome view. We're going to be using the slope that's existing here to build some nice waterfalls in here, and then we're going to bring it all the way up so the water comes pretty close to this existing patio right here.
Hey, it's Mike from Oasis Water Gardens. From backyard ponds to breathtaking waterfalls, I'll show you the art of bringing natural beauty right to your home.
All right, we got our sump pump in now. We're gonna drain this water down as low as we can. Then we're gonna start ripping out some of those plants. We got the pump draining the water out in the garden over here.
A common misconception with projects like this is that it's actually easier to do a project because the hole has already been dug for you. In our experience, for the most part, it's actually harder to rip out an existing project and start over than it is to just come in and start from scratch. This is because digging the hole with the excavator actually doesn't take a lot of time, and it usually takes a lot more time to rip something like this out. And once we get it ripped out, we're still gonna have to come in and clean up the excavation to make sure that it's the right shape and the right depth.
All right, we are ripping out the old biofalls here. Here you can see the old biofalls that we just ripped out of this pond. And I wanted to keep this so that I could have some of the crew practice sealing faceplates on this thing. So what we ended up doing was just cutting some notches in the sides here so we could lift that out and then keep that faceplate intact so we can take that off and we can have some new guys practice doing our silicone seals on here and not on a paying customer's job.
All right, right now we're just trying to figure out exactly how we want to shape this basin so that we can start the pondless waterfall. It's always really important to make sure that we have the basin in the correct location. That way we're going to really be capitalizing on those viewpoints.
All right, we're about to strap up and move some of these huge boulders that were around the pond area. So the homeowner wants to actually have a nice pathway coming around the left side of the pond here. So right around here, they want to create a pathway. This big boulder's in the way, so we're gonna strap it up right now and move it out of the way. We may incorporate it in the waterfall later, we'll see.
It's a lot of times really hard to tell how large some of these boulders actually are on camera, but this one was at the capacity for how much this excavator can lift. So we were just moving it out of the way for right now. Later we were gonna come a little bit closer and move it into the exact location.
It's 11 at that deepest spot. Well, probably like 10 if the block is level. 10 inches of drop below grade plus what we got up there. Just out of curiosity, why don't we see, I want to put that at the top of the berm there, and then I can measure it down. I mean, this is a little off, but all right, so that's like 21. That's also probably 3 or 4 inches higher than it was over here. So call it 24, 25, minus 10. So that would, I got that on video. Another 14 or so from where the blocks are at. It's maybe a touch low here. Maybe let's just take some of this dirt, level it, just get this all nice and level.
So right there, you can hear we were discussing the exact depth that we wanted the basin to be at. Now the importance here is we're trying to create as much height as we can in this space, but still making it fit the natural slope. So one trick is we can actually go a little bit deeper with the basin to create more height in the actual waterfalls.
All right, we got our basin in here. We have our pump fault recessed below our blocks. That's gonna make it so the pump is at the lowest point in the system, which is really important for the water flow. That's also gonna make it easier to clean out in the future. We can drop a clean out pump down in here and clean out the whole system. Now, we're gonna start bringing in our underlayment, bring in our liner, and get this thing ready for rocks.
Now that we're sure we have the right configuration for the aqua blocks, we're bringing in that geotextile underlayment. On top of that, we're putting our 45 mil EPDM liner. And then on top of that, we're doing one more layer of the geotextile underlayment. This is just going to be extra protection for that liner. And then once we have all that in place, we're going to start taking our larger 5 to 8 Delaware River stones and start backfilling all around those blocks. That's going to lock them into place and make them more sturdy.
We're back for day 2 of this 10-foot pondless waterfall build. So here we got our buckets of 3/4 gravel. We like to fill these all up. That way when we go to backfill behind some of our boulders, we can do it really quickly. We get our first drop set. We'll have some water coming in through here. And now we're gonna work on setting some of these drops in this area. So waterfall is gonna come all the way up to here.
So now that we have that first drop and those first framing boulders in, we're actually gonna come back. We took some of that underlayment and then we're backfilling some of our gravel on top of that. This is so we can get the boulders behind them a little bit higher.
All right, right now we're setting a boulder and it has a nice little cutout here. So we're gonna wanna take advantage of that and try to get water to come this way. The goal will be to have a weir that sits behind it here that dumps water in this area and then it curves back this way. So what we gotta do is make sure that it's leveled correctly so that the water is gonna wanna kick off this point. We're testing here and we got some good slope this way, which is gonna be perfect. And then we also wanna look here. We're actually perfectly level here. Any water that comes down here is gonna all wanna come down this way, and we'll probably get a little bit rolling off of here, which will create a nice effect as well.
When you're going for the naturalistic look with your waterfalls, it's really, really nice to be able to take advantage of some of the cutouts and different notches that are already in some of the boulders from the quarry. That's gonna give you a much more natural looking effect than something that you have to manufacture yourself.
Let's look at some plumbing right now, and we're actually doing a bulkhead through the liner. So he's gonna tell you how he's doing that.
So we got this this piece of plumbing right here. We got the pump right here with the check valve, and we got the bulkhead through the liner here. So we basically wanna glue the pipe in to the check valve here that connects to the pump, and then run it to this, which is the bulkhead, which goes through the liner, which will have another piece of plumbing connecting here, and then it'll run all the way up to the waterfall, and that's where the water will come down.
How'd you put the bulkhead through the liner?
Yeah, so to put the bulkhead in, you just line it up. You cut a little piece of liner here through the middle, sort of like a crisscross, and then you put one half of the bulkhead on this side and it comes through, and then you screw the other half in on this side. Screw them really tight so that no water gets through, and then you glue.
Good explanation there. One other piece is the rubber side of the bulkhead always goes on the water side. So this side here, this is our basin, that's water side. So we always put the rubber piece of the bulkhead on this side, and then there's a little bit of a nut on the other side, a plastic nut that just tightens it down.
Now the rocks were actually really nice to us on this project. Sometimes we have to seem to want to fight them to make them fit perfectly. On this project though, we were actually able to set all of our main boulder and waterfall drops pretty much in the time that it took Ethan to run some of that plumbing. This is typically how we're going to do them. We're going to try to set all the main framing boulders and all of those weirs just to design the path of the water into this thing. Then we can come back later and use some smaller boulders or some of our 5 to 8 Delaware River stone and fill in all those gaps and make this thing look awesome.
All right, we got most of the rock work set here. Let me walk you through some of the drops that we have going on right now. So the water will come through this section here. We have these 2 boulders set so that we're gonna get a nice gush of water coming through here. And then we're also gonna look to get some coming off this side of it as well. So you get a kind of a 360 going on with that area. Coming up here, we'll have a nice drop into a pool of water here. This is the lowest spot, so there should be a nice gush coming off of here, and then we're also gonna look to get some coming around off of this side of the rock. And then back here, we're gonna work a nice long weir in this section, so we'll get a wider drop here, and we do have a little bit of an angle here, so we should be able to get some water coming off of this and off of this little notch that's in there as well.
All right, so now we're starting to go around and fill in all of these last spots with some of our boulders and some of our 5 to 8 river stone. We're also going to be checking all the weirs here and making sure that they're either perfectly level or that they're pushing water in the direction that we're looking for. From there, we're going to be able to start doing the edging all along this waterfall and getting that liner hidden. Right here, we're gluing through the back of the liner. this is where we have our bulkhead coming through to our waterfall spillway. So this is our 2-inch flex PVC pipeline. We're gluing that into the back now, and that's going to connect the basin pump with the spillway at the top of the waterfall. Now that the plumbing and the boulders are all in, we're going around and we're starting to do some of that edging along the side of the waterfall. So what we're looking to do is make sure that the liner is folded up, so we have a few extra inches of liner in case anything ever settles over time. We'll have plenty of liner to pull up if there's ever an edge leak in this waterfall.
Right now we are doing some foaming. So I'm going to show you the areas that we're going to be foaming, and this is to make sure that the water goes over our waterfall and weir stones and doesn't get behind them. Going to foam all this stuff up here. We got to come in, foam all of this stuff up here. We got this light that's going to hit this drop. Then we got to foam this whole section right up in here, and then right towards the back we got to foam all of this stuff up.
One of the most frustrating challenges when you're doing some foaming is that if you miss a few spots, your water is going to leak out and you're not going to get the intended waterfall effect. So our solution to that is to foam from top to bottom. That way we can test out each drop as we go and make sure that we don't miss anything. We're actually foaming from the top to the bottom. That way we can test out each drop as we go. This whole bed here has now been foamed up. Going to keep all of our water going over these rocks, which is what we want. Pat it down so that you can see we get most of those bumps out of there. This is all going to get covered up with riverstone all the way up to here. We're going to put riverstone, so the water will upflow and then go over. You won't see any foam. And then we've done the second pool as well. Again, this is going to get covered with riverstone, but all that foam is going to keep that water coming over this weir stone. Otherwise, it would just disappear right behind it and we wouldn't have a waterfall. Now that everything is foamed up and working as intended, we're going to cover that with riverstone. Here you can see the riverstone in those stream beds where we had all that foam that's going underneath there in this stream bed here, and all the way up top. So now you can't see any foam at all, and the water is going exactly how we're hoping for. All right, we are back here on day 3. What we're gonna be doing today is we're gonna be throwing in some plants. I'm throwing in some ferns, all in the rocks along the waterfall, and then the homeowner is actually going to do the rest of the plantings around this thing. We got some extra topsoil. We're gonna be filling in some low spots. Because on this one, we didn't actually dig the excavation. The excavation was sort of already there with the pond. So we didn't have as much soil as usual. So we're bringing that in. Then we're gonna mulch it up and get this thing looking awesome. You can see us going through and taking some of our ferns and working those all along the rocks in between these waterfall stones.
Woo! Holy cow, it is storming. We are about probably an hour from finishing this thing. We were just about to set our mulch down and get that all in. We got a huge storm coming through. We tried to keep working. It is just way too thick. So we're gonna come back tomorrow morning and get this thing finished up. All right, we are back from the storm yesterday, trying to wrap this up. With that storm, we actually got a ton of runoff from the patio that's getting into the pondless waterfall, installing an overflow system on this to make sure that this is not an issue in the future. Actually, right now we're installing that overflow into the bottom of the basin right here. We're gonna be cutting a hole into the liner, and we're gonna be installing a bulkhead fitting. That's gonna keep a watertight seal here. This is actually the overflow pipe that we're gonna be using. This is gonna go right about here, and it's gonna be able to twist this way and this way. So that gives us a lot of freedom as far as how high we want to set the water level in the basin. So as the water gets above these aqua blocks here, it'll only stay a few inches above these before it'll start draining out our trench. And then right here, we have the trench for our pipe that's going all the way out here. So all that overflow water will come through our pipe in this trench and then back out here through the edge of the property. Matthew's checking grade on the trench right now with the laser.